Some things really do get better with age. A good bottle of wine, a deep friendship, and, perhaps most importantly, perspective. When I turned 60, something shifted inside me. It was not dramatic or loud. It was quiet, like a soft whisper reminding me that life ahead should not be lived out of habit, but with intention. I realized I had spent so much of my life holding on to roles, responsibilities, expectations, even people. Sometimes out of love, sometimes out of fear, and sometimes simply because I did not know how to let go. But crossing into my 60s felt like stepping into a sacred new chapter, a season that invited me, not to add more, but to gently release what no longer served me. So I started letting go. And in that letting go, I found something I had not truly known in decades: peace. In this video, I want to share 11 things I stopped doing after turning 60. These are not just habits or routines. These are emotional weights, mental patterns, and beliefs I carried for years without realizing how heavy they were. And maybe, just maybe as you hear them, you will recognize something in yourself and feel a little lighter too. Because letting go is not giving up. It is growing up. And I believe the best kind of aging is the kind where we become softer, wiser, and more ourselves than we have ever been before. Let us begin. 1. Letting go of the need to stay busy. When I was younger, I wore busyness like a badge of honor. If I had 10 things to do in a day, I felt accomplished. If I had only 2, I felt guilty. Somewhere along the way, I picked up the idea that if I was not being productive, I was somehow falling behind, wasting time, not doing enough, not being enough. It took me a long time to realize that there is a big difference between a full life and a full schedule. After turning 60, I began to notice the cost of constant motion. My body grew tired more easily. My mind needed longer moments of quiet. And my soul? Well, my soul had been whispering for years that it needed space to breathe. I finally listened. Letting go of the need to stay busy did not happen all at once. At first, I felt restless, like I should be doing something, like I was being lazy. But slowly, I began to understand that stillness is not the opposite of progress. It is often where our deepest healing and clarity come from. Now, I protect my quiet time like I used to protect deadlines. I allow myself mornings with no alarms. I take walks with no destination. I sit with a book, or just a cup of tea, without the urge to multitask. It is not that I do nothing. It is that I do things more intentionally, and at a pace that honors my body and soul. Letting go of busyness allowed me to be present in a way I never was before. I listen better. I breathe deeper. I notice more. The world feels gentler, and I feel more grounded in it. Because at this stage of life, being busy is no longer my goal. Being peaceful is. 2. Letting go of shopping for validation. There was a time in my life when shopping felt like therapy. A new blouse, a piece of jewelry, a shiny handbag. They made me feel seen, admired, maybe even important. I shopped when I was bored. I shopped when I felt down. I shopped because I believed, somewhere deep inside, that if I looked the part, I might finally feel the part. But the truth was, no matter how many pretty things I bought, I still carried the same self-doubt underneath them. Over the years, closets filled, shoes lined up, boxes stayed unopened, and eventually, I had to ask myself, what am I really trying to buy? After turning 60, I realized I no longer needed to prove anything, not to the world, not to anyone, not even to myself. I wanted less clutter, less noise, less stuff that demanded space and energy but gave nothing meaningful back. So I began to shop less. I began to think more about what I truly valued. I started investing in experiences, not things. A dinner with an old friend, a weekend road trip, a course I had always wanted to take. These things left me feeling filled, not just full. When I do shop now, I ask myself 3 questions. 1. Does this bring peace into my home? 2. Will I actually use or wear this with joy? 3. Am I buying this to feel better or because it truly adds value? Letting go of shopping for validation was not just about saving money. It was about reclaiming my sense of self-worth. I no longer needed a price tag to feel valuable because I have come to believe this deeply. I am already enough, just as I am. 3. Letting go of the guilt of saying no. This one was especially hard. As women, we are often taught to be agreeable, accommodating, and available. We learn to say yes early in life, and we carry that habit into our older years, even when it begins to exhaust us. For decades, I said yes to family events I did not want to attend, yes to extra responsibilities at work, yes to favors, phone calls, visits, and errands, even when my body was begging me to rest, or my heart was quietly pleading for space. I feared that saying no would make me look selfish, that I would disappoint someone, that people might stop relying on me, or even loving me. But in the years after turning 60, I learned something radical. Saying no is not rejection. It is redirection. It is not turning away from people. It is turning toward myself. It is acknowledging that I only have so much energy, so much time, so much heart to give, and that I must give those things where they matter most. The first time I said no with confidence, I felt a knot in my stomach. But afterward, I felt light, free, empowered. Over time, the guilt faded, and in its place came a new kind of strength, the kind that comes from honoring your own needs. Now I say no when I'm tired. I say no when something does not align with my values. I say no when my body or my mind needs rest. And the best part? The world did not fall apart. In fact, the people who truly love me still do. And my relationships have become more honest, more respectful, and more balanced. I have found that every time I say no to something that drains me, I am saying yes to something that fills me. Time for rest, space for joy, energy for the people and passions that truly matter. Letting go of the guilt of saying no has allowed me to finally say yes to myself. 4. Letting go of negative self-talk. If I'm being honest, the harshest voice in my life was never from someone else. It was mine. For years, I spoke to myself in ways I would never speak to a friend. You're not doing enough. You look terrible today. You should have known better. I let that voice run wild. I thought maybe it would keep me in line, keep me striving, help me be better. But all it ever did was drain me, quietly, over time. After turning 60, I started to ask myself, what if I treated myself the way I treat the people I love most? Would I shame my best friend for gaining weight? Would I criticize my daughter for forgetting something? Would I call someone I love a failure for making a mistake? No, not in a million years. So why was I doing it to myself? That realization changed everything. I started listening closely to the voice in my head, and when it turned cruel, I stopped it. I replaced it with something gentler, something truer. Now, when I look in the mirror, I smile, even on the days when my hair is a mess or my face looks tired. I remind myself that I have earned every line, every scar, every soft curve. I am not perfect, but I am worthy. I am enough. I am here, and that is more than enough. Letting go of negative self-talk has made space for something so much better, self-compassion. And in my 60s, I have finally learned how to speak to myself with kindness. 5. Letting go of regrets I can't rewrite. If there's one thing most of us carry quietly, it's regret. Moments we wish we could take back. Words we should not have said. Paths we wish we had taken, or never taken at all. I used to replay those moments late at night, like a film I couldn't turn off. I thought that if I went over them enough times, maybe I could make peace with them. But all it ever did was stir up shame, sorrow, and a feeling of helplessness. One day, I sat with my journal and wrote this sentence: I cannot change the past, but I can change how I carry it. That sentence set me free. I began to see my regrets not as weights, but as lessons. Every misstep taught me something. Every stumble shaped who I am. And while I do not celebrate those mistakes, I have chosen to make peace with them. Sometimes that peace came through forgiveness of others, and especially of myself. Sometimes it came through time, and sometimes it came through simply whispering, "You did the best you could with what you knew then." I've stopped punishing myself for being human. Letting go of regret is not about pretending the past did not happen. It's about recognizing that I am more than my worst moments. I am a full, evolving story, and I still get to write the ending. In my 60s, I no longer waste my energy rewriting history. I focus on making today something I'll never regret. 6. Letting go of drama-filled relationships. This one took courage. There were people in my life who had been around forever. Family, old friends, even longtime acquaintances, who no longer brought peace. Some brought chaos. Some brought manipulation. Some just drained the life out of me, little by little with every interaction. But I kept them close, out of habit, out of guilt, out of the belief that I should. After 60, that word, should, started to lose its grip on me. I realized that life is far too short to spend in rooms where I feel small, unheard, disrespected, or constantly on edge, so I began to step back. Not with anger, not with resentment, just with clarity. I let the relationships fade that no longer felt mutual, loving, or life-giving. I stopped chasing people who only called when they needed something. I stopped tolerating conversations that made me feel lesser or judged. And in that space, something beautiful happened. I had more room for the people who genuinely cared, people who listened, who showed up, who made me feel safe, seen, and appreciated. I used to think that letting go of people was unkind, but I've come to believe the real kindness lies in surrounding ourselves with honesty and love, not obligation and resentment. Now, my relationships may be fewer, but they are deeper. Letting go of drama-filled connections has brought me peace I never thought possible, and it has taught me that a calm life is a rich life. 7. Letting go of ignoring my body. For many years, I treated my body like it was something separate from me, something to push, fix, or even resent. I ignored the aches. I pushed through the fatigue. I brushed off the signs, those quiet whispers from within, that something needed attention. I would tell myself, I'll deal with it later, or I don't have time for this now. I was so busy taking care of everyone else, my children, my spouse, my job, the house, that I put myself dead last. And when I did think about my health, it was usually through the lens of how I looked, not how I felt. But turning 60 changed everything. My body no longer let me postpone care. The whispers became louder. fatigue that didn't lift, stiffness that lingered, emotions that bubbled up in unexpected ways. And I realized, almost painfully, that I had spent decades treating my body as if it was something I had to work against, instead of a lifelong companion I needed to nurture and listen to. So I stopped waiting for a wake-up call. I stopped waiting for a diagnosis to make me pay attention. I began walking every morning, not to lose weight or check off a box, but simply to move with gratitude. I felt the sun on my face, the ground beneath my feet, the air in my lungs. And for the first time, I didn't judge my pace. I celebrated it. I started feeding myself better too, not dieting, but nourishing. I listened to how foods made me feel, not just how they made me look. I let go of shame around aging, around stretch marks, wrinkles, softness. I started seeing them not as flaws, but as chapters, signs of a life lived fully and honestly. And most importantly, I began honoring rest. I stopped feeling guilty for taking naps. I stopped pushing myself past the point of exhaustion just to get one more thing done. I understood finally that my body is not a machine, it's a home, and it deserves respect. Letting go of the habit of ignoring my body has been one of the most transformative things I've done after 60. It's not about vanity. It's not about fear. It's about love. A deep, quiet love for the vessel that has carried me through every season, every heartbreak, every triumph. And now, I no longer ask my body to perform. I ask it what it needs. And I listen. 8. Letting go of procrastinating on personal dreams. I spent so many years putting my dreams on a shelf, telling myself, later, someday, when there's more time, when things settle down. The trouble is, life doesn't settle. It shifts, it moves, it throws curveballs, and suddenly, someday, turns into decades. There were things I wanted to do just for me. Write a memoir, travel solo, take an art class, start a small garden, learn Italian. But for the longest time, I treated those dreams like luxuries, not priorities. I put them behind everything else, behind work, behind obligations, behind everyone else's needs. But when I turned 60, something inside me said, enough waiting. It wasn't fear that pushed me. It was urgency, not panic, but clarity. I realized that if I didn't start now, I might never start at all. Time, once so abundant, now felt more precious than ever. And instead of mourning that fact, I let it motivate me. So I started small. I picked up my old journal and began writing again. Just a few lines a day. I signed up for a community watercolor class. I planned a short trip, not far, just a few towns over, but it was mine, and I did it alone. I tried new recipes, I planted tomatoes, I watched foreign films without subtitles, and tried to guess what was happening. These things may sound small, but to me, they were sacred. Every little dream I brought to life reminded me that it's never too late to begin again. I've learned that joy doesn't require a grand achievement. It just asks for motion, a willingness to begin. And the beautiful thing about pursuing dreams at this age is that I do it without pressure. I don't need to be the best. I don't need to prove anything. I do it for the sheer love of it, for the girl inside me who waited so patiently for her turn. So if there's something you've been putting off, a book, a trip, a conversation, a painting, a dance lesson, please let this be your permission. Start now. Because our dreams don't expire, they simply wait for us to remember them. 9. Letting go of the fear of change. For most of my life, I clung tightly to what was familiar. I feared change, not because I didn't want to grow, but because I was afraid of what I might lose in the process. I stayed in roles, routines, and even relationships longer than I should have, simply because I was terrified of the unknown. There's comfort in familiarity, even when it no longer fits. It's like wearing a pair of old shoes. They might pinch, they might hurt, but they're predictable. But in my 60s, I began to see change not as a threat, but as an invitation. It started with little things: downsizing the house, letting my hair go gray, saying goodbye to certain social circles, getting more comfortable with being alone. These changes were not always easy. Some were accompanied by grief, others by relief. But in all of them, I found space. I realized that clinging too tightly to the past was keeping me from stepping fully into the present. Change, I've discovered, is not something to survive. It's something to step into with curiosity. Sometimes change means releasing outdated dreams and discovering new ones. Sometimes it means letting go of control and trusting life's timing. Sometimes it means sitting in the in-between, between what was and what will be, and learning to find peace there. The older I get, the more I understand that change is not the enemy of stability. It's the path to it. Because true stability comes from within, not from the things or people or routines we try so hard to keep the same. Now, when change arrives, and it always will, I do not run from it. I sit with it. I ask it what it's here to teach me. I allow myself to feel the discomfort, but I do not let that discomfort decide my future. Letting go of the fear of change has opened my heart to possibilities I never would have imagined. New friendships, new places, new hobbies, even a new relationship with myself. Change will come whether we resist it or not, but embracing it, that's a choice, and it's one of the most liberating choices I've made after 60. 10. Letting go of poor sleep habits. There was a time when sleep felt like an afterthought. In my younger years, I wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. Late nights, early mornings, one more thing to finish before bed. I thought rest was something I had to earn. After all the work was done, after everyone else was taken care of. But in my 60s, my body and mind started speaking louder. I wasn't just tired, I was drained, foggy, short-tempered. There were days when I couldn't remember why I walked into a room. Nights when my heart raced, not from stress, but from the simple fact that I hadn't let it slow down all day. That's when I began to understand. Sleep is not a luxury. It's a form of self-respect. I let go of the belief that staying up late made me more productive. I stopped numbing myself with television, scrolling through news I couldn't change, or playing games to pass the time. Instead, I created a bedtime ritual that felt like a gift. I dimmed the lights. I brewed herbal tea. I lit a lavender candle. I read a chapter from a book that didn't demand anything of me, just gently carried me away. I left my phone in another room. I gave my mind permission to let go. And little by little, sleep returned, not just as a function, but as a friend. Now, I go to bed not out of habit, but with intention. I thank my body for carrying me. I quiet my thoughts, and I trust that tomorrow will be better if I meet it fully rested. Letting go of poor sleep habits gave me more than energy. It gave me clarity. It lifted the cloud that had been hanging over my days. It helped me reconnect with my creativity, my patience, and my joy. Because rest is not wasted time. It's how we refuel for everything that matters. 11. Letting go of comparing myself to others. This one was quiet, but powerful. I didn't even realize how much I was comparing myself to others until I started paying attention to the little thoughts. Look at her skin. They're traveling again? I wish I had her energy, her husband, her family, her life. Even in my 60s, I found myself scrolling through perfect pictures online, overhearing conversations, watching others live lives that seemed shinier, smoother, more fulfilling. And every time I did, I felt a little smaller. Comparison is a thief. It doesn't just steal our joy, it steals our presence. It keeps us from seeing what is good, what is real, what is enough. So I started doing something radical. I stopped looking outside and started looking inward. Instead of asking what others had that I didn't, I asked, what do I have that I haven't appreciated yet? I have strength that isn't always visible. I have resilience that took decades to build. I have stories that deserve to be honored, not hidden. I started focusing on my own path, not because it's perfect, but because it's mine. I've walked through grief. I've carried others. I've rebuilt myself more times than I can count. And that matters more than a highlight reel on someone else's screen. Now, when I see another woman thriving, I celebrate her. Because her light doesn't dim mine, and her success isn't a measure of my worth. Letting go of comparison has allowed me to be deeply, peacefully content with my own life, even with the unfinished parts. Because I finally understand, my life isn't supposed to look like anyone else's. It's only supposed to feel like home to me. The peace that came with letting go. Letting go is not always easy. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like stepping into the unknown, with nothing but your own heartbeat for company. But every single thing I've released after 60, whether it was a belief, a habit, a fear, or an old pattern, has made room for something softer, deeper, more meaningful. I've made space for rest, for joy, for laughter that bubbles up from my chest, not because everything is perfect, but because I've stopped needing it to be. I've made space for myself, not the version of me I used to chase, but the woman I am now, the woman I've become, wrinkled, wiser, real. And I've learned that peace isn't something we stumble into. It's something we create, piece by piece, choice by choice. Letting go by letting go. So wherever you are on your journey, I hope you'll remember this. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to begin again. And it's never, ever too late to make peace with your life and with yourself. Thank you for spending this time with me.